Okay, so let's start. So hello, and firstly, thank you very much for your participation in our webinar out of your busy schedule today. My name is Satoshi Takayama, one of the co-founders of Fenetre Partners. I'm also an advisor specialized in industrial machinery and component sectors in Japan. And another co-founder is Yasushi Hasegawa, who is managing director of our company. After I introduce our company, Yasushi will do the main part of today's presentation. Okay, then today, the topic of today's webinar is how to develop OEM customers in Japan. In this presentation, we'll explain that your target is not the Japanese domestic market, but Japanese customers located all over the world. But before we start our webinar, I'd like to let you know a few things. And at the bottom of Zoom screen, you can find Q&A panel, question and answer panel. So during our presentation, if you have any questions about our presentation or our Japanese business in general, please use this Q&A panel to send you a question. Then we will answer to your question during our presentation or at the last part of the presentation. Also, if you have questions about specific industry or about your company's business in Japan, please contact us by email directly to reserve a separate online meeting with us. You can find Yasushi's email address in his first invitation email of this webinar, and it is marketing@fenetre.co.jp. We are happy to answer to your questions and support you for your future business in Japan. Also, after the webinar, if you'd like to have a presentation material, or then please send an email message to Yasushi, then we can send them to you later. Okay, please go to the next page. Thanks. This page shows today's agenda. Yasushi will explain why Japan, understand your customer first, reality of marketing and sales activities in Japan, options of market entry modes, case studies, and Q&A. Please go to the next page. Okay, with this page, I'd like to introduce our company briefly. Our company, Fenetre Partners, is one of the leading consulting firms of trade, investment, and international marketing based in Tokyo. Our clients are medium to large-size companies, mainly from the US and Europe. We also have many clients of overseas governmental organizations to support trade missions and foreign direct investment. The main scope of our service is market entry support to enter Japan, not only by market researches or consulting, but by implementation. This implementation means, for example, business development, lead generation, and this is our company's strength. What we mainly do with this implementation is sales and marketing activities locally in Japan on behalf of our clients like you. So we work as if we are your local Japanese branch office. We currently have 30 staff, and we have worked on more than 300 international projects since our company was established 13 years ago. And please go to the next page. Thanks. This page shows logos of our past and current clients. As explained earlier, we have clients of mainly American, European manufacturing companies, and also governmental organizations. Industries of our clients are mainly industrial machinery, components, automotive. We also have customers of consumer product sector. Then from next page, my colleague Yasushi will explain the main topic of our presentation. Thank you very much.
Takayama-san, thank you for your introduction. Hello everyone, I'm Yasushi Hasegawa. Managing Director of Fenetre Partners. And it's my great pleasure to share our knowledge, expertise, and experience about the Japanese market together with you today. So, and I'd like to start from this section, why Japan? So let's get started. You can find some key figures which highlight on how Japan is. So population is like this, but the problem is we are losing population like 1 million per a few years. So our population is shrinking, which is not a good idea for our consumer markets. And the GDP is like this, roughly half of China or 1/4 of the US. And the GDP growth rate is usually between 0% and 1%. But last year, as most of the countries were, it's recorded -4%. This year, in the last year, it has recovered a little bit, but it's still on the way to recover to the level before the COVID. And now I'm going to explain some two shocking figures. The first one is here, GDP per capita. Probably some of you guys think Japan is a rich country, but I have to say Japan was a rich country in the past, like 20 years ago. Actually, Japan was ranked world number 2 in terms of GDP per capita 20 years ago, but now it's ranked 24th or 5th. It means, people in Singapore and Hong Kong earn much more money than Japan. This is a reality. Of course, the economy in Tokyo is almost the same with Singapore or Hong Kong, but the economy of whole Japan is, I have to say it's getting poorer and poorer. Another problem is here, median age. Actually, Japan is the second oldest country in the world. The number one is Luxembourg, where rich old people gather. So in big countries, Japan is the oldest. So imagine the situation. People are getting poor and the people are getting older. So I have to say, if you are selling consumer goods, definitely Japan is not a good market, especially for some products aimed at young rich people. So I recommend you choose other destination. And this is our chart of Japan economy. Obviously, our peak was in 1990s here. And then there's no growth in the last 2 decades. And I checked the statistics of World Bank. Actually, in terms of GDP growth in the last 2 decades, Japan is the worst in the world. The total growth of GDP was 8% in total, not in average. While China recorded over 1,000% growth in the last 2 decades. So this is a reality. After economic crisis in 2008 and big earthquake in 2011, Japan had a serious situation during that period. So during that period, Japan passing happened. Americans, Europeans, flew over Japan and to go to other Asian countries. So at the time, Japan is not a good destination for any kinds of products. However, it's been recovering before 2020. And now, I like to believe Japan has started recovering in terms of GDP growth. But please do not expect high growth rate. And probably that will be between 0% and 1% in the coming decade. And I think this is a good example about the market situation of Japan. This is a chart of sales of automotive in Japan domestically. at the peak time, it was 8 million per year, but now roughly 5 million. Obviously, the market size of a car in Japan has been declining steadily. However, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think most of Japanese automotive companies are not doing well? So you can find the answer on the next slide. This is a chart, the production value and sales volume of key major Japanese automotive companies. Again, domestic sales is at the level of 5 million, but at the same time, same amount is exported to other countries. So this is our total production in Japan. In addition to that, the production outside Japan has been growing. So as a result, production globally has been growing steadily. So domestic market of Japan for cars is not good, but Japanese automotive companies are growing, thriving. So this is what Satoshi explained at the beginning of today's webinar. So if you focus on the domestic Japan market, most of the products are not good fit for Japan because their economy is not growing. Competition is harsh. As a result, price should fall down. However, if you change your mind, if you like to develop Japanese customers, probably your target companies are growing by global expansion, like this automotive industry. So this is our top 20 companies in terms of increase in net sales from 2005 to 2014. That data is a bit old. However, it literally highlights how Japanese big companies are growing. Please remember what I explained. We had the economic crisis in 2008, not only in Japan, and the big earthquake in 2011. So this period was, very terrible in terms of economy for Japan. However, those big Japanese companies were growing even during that period. So you can find a very famous company name: Toyota, Honda, Nissan, automotive guys, Daikin, air condition, Bridgestone tire, Sony, Toshiba, Astras, pharmaceutical. So they were growing even in such a very hard time. The secret can be found here: overseas sales ratio. For example, Toyota earned 78% from outside Japan, 86% for Honda. So this is a secret why Japanese companies are growing steadily, because they don't rely on the domestic market anymore. So their main source of sales is outside Japan. So when you think about the market entry into Japan, please ignore the domestic market if you are selling industrial goods. But please identify your target companies and check their sales. Probably your target companies are growing by global expansion. And this is a very interesting research conducted by the Harakiri, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Germany, its Japan office. The office distributed questionnaires to their membership in Japan to ask which is bigger, A and B. B is simple: sales revenue from a Japanese company in Japan. A is sales from Japanese companies located outside Japan. And surprisingly, almost half of German companies answered they are more outside Japan than inside Japan. And 20% answered A is 4 times bigger than B. So they are doing business development activities in Japan, but they earn sales more outside Japan. This is the reason why still many foreign companies are seeking opportunities in Japan. So their goal is not to earn sales from a Japanese company in Japan, but they like to deliver their products to Japanese companies located all over the world. Now you might think you can try to sell to Toyota China, but it's very difficult. So most of the big Japanese companies have a very centralized organizational culture. It means decision makers are always in Japan. But there are some exceptions. If you are selling very simple products, you can directly sell to local engineers like Toyota India, for example. However, if you are selling very critical components or equipment, for example, engine filter for eco-friendly, autonomous driving software, or some safety sensors to automotive industries. In such case, definitely decision makers are in Japan. Local engineers can't choose such component or equipment. So in this case, you have to do sales in Japan first, and then you will have a chance to deliver to their factories all over the world. And there's another bonus. Probably you are doing business in many Asian countries, and I believe you often encounter Japanese companies there. That's true. Japan is the biggest investor in Asian countries. Japan is the #1 investor in China, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, and second in India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. So if you develop Japanese customers in Japan, probably you will have a chance to deliver to Japanese companies located in those Asian countries. So this is a sort of bonus. So that's why I like to tell you, if you are selling industrial goods, definitely Japan is a good destination. So probably those products are a very good fit with the Japanese company. However, if you are selling consumer products, I don't recommend Japan because many foreign big giants left Japan due to poor sales. The market is shrinking, the competition is harsh, consumer preference is very different, and the local competitors are super strong. And this is a good example. L'Oreal, the biggest cosmetics company in Europe, made a decision to withdraw from the Japanese skincare sector because they cannot compete. They only had 1% market share, which is almost nothing for L'Oreal. So that is a reality of Japanese consumer goods industry. And another good sector is healthcare and alternative energy. Obviously, there are a lot of aging population, so healthcare should be demanded. And due to the nuclear plant incident, Japan is still suffering from the lack of energy source. Recently, in addition to that, probably Japan cannot source gas from Russia, maybe in the coming few years. So alternative energies are another good industry. So now you get the view, what kind of industry in Japan are attractive for a foreign company. So if you are selling consumer goods, like premium products for rich young, definitely you should not choose Japan. So you can leave this webinar. I don't think it's important because, probably it could be a waste of time. Hopefully, many of you guys are still interested in Japan. So let's go to the next section. When you do business development in Japan, you have to understand their culture first, because their reaction is very different from Europe, US, and also other Asian countries. So this is our HR and career. It's very famous with those three concepts. The first one is a recruitment of new graduates. It's like a military service. Big Japanese companies usually hire new graduates, like 300 people at the same time, and they are supposed to start working as of April 1st. So the recruitment style is super different. And the second one is a lifetime employment. For young people, their ideal career is to keep working for the same employer, a big company like Mitsui, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Sony, for 40 years. So it's very different from other countries. Probably South Korea has a somewhat similar culture, but it's very different from other countries, even in Asia. And seniority-based pay. Actually, your performance doesn't matter. So the salary is set by how many years you have worked for the same employer. I know it sounds very stupid, but this is the reality. So this is the curve of salary, like this. So you have to be over 40 years old in order to be a manager, and roughly 50 to be a senior manager. And if you fail to be promoted, your salary should start declining after 60 years old. And all big Japanese companies have the same retirement age regulation at the age of 65. It's not a law, but it's regulated by the Keidanran Association of Industry. So when you think about this HR culture, obviously, most of the Japanese companies have no reason to take risk because there's no fruit. So sometimes doing nothing would be the best strategy to be promoted, safely. So when you try to persuade your Japanese customer to replace some components by yours, they are risk averse because there's no meaning to take risk. And this is our organizational structure. Japanese people love titles. Maybe it's somewhat similar in China, but I like to believe it's not to broken down into such small pieces. The decision-making culture is usually a middle up and down. So I like to say, top management is a sort of sinecure or ownable position, meaning, they are in high level, but they do nothing. Probably they join a big conference, meeting, or any kind of ritual. That is their main role. Most of the important things are decided by middle managers, and they usually make a consensus with their team and need to get the approval from top. So this is a way of making decision in a big Japanese company. So sometimes foreign companies ask us to arrange a meeting with CTO or director or something, but I have to say it's a mis-expectation. It's super difficult to arrange a meeting with CLO because they have nothing to talk with you. And even though I have arranged a meeting for you, unfortunately, he's not the right person. He just tell you, okay, let me introduce our manager to you. Probably he's the right person to discuss with you. So this is the reality of the organizational structure of Japan. And face work is very important, like in China. So you should not say no to a manager in front of their subordinate, for example. And the most of the important deals are made in back room or under the table. So sometimes our clients prefer to give an official presentation, but it's meaningless. Presentation is like a literal for Japanese. In the case of a presentation, usually decisions have been already made. So it's a Japan style. Sometimes a decision is made at the bar or izakaya with drinking beer. Important things are always very informal. And I'd like to explain some cultural difference in more detail. This is a very famous framework to compare different culture in different countries. So I like to focus on 3 dimensions where Japan has very high score. The first one is masculinity. I think this is the highest score in the world. And usually this score is very low in Latin Europe, like in France, Italy. So this shows the cultural masculinity. If the score is high, people are super competitive and diligent. For example, in Japan, usually we are supposed to sacrifice myself and my family in order to contribute our employer. Very masculine. But in low masculinity culture or feminine culture, people value their private life and their family. So Japan is the most masculine country in the world. So competition is super tough. For example, usually suppliers can't say no, even to a very insane request from their customer. In such case, they don't sleep. They don't take day offs until they completed the work in order to meet the requirement from a big customer. It's really tough world. And the second one is uncertainty avoidance. I believe it's one of the highest score in the world. It means most Japanese people don't want to take risks. I think it's very different from China. For example, the score in China is quite lower than US, I think. And the third one is long-term orientation. Most Japanese people like to establish a long-term partnership with their suppliers. It's somewhat same in Germany, but different from the US or German or China. So those 3 high scores are very tough entry barriers because your competitors work hard like a slave, and your customers are risk averse. They want to replace components or equipment as far as it goes well, and they prefer to keep working together with the existing supplier. So this is the reason why Japan is a super tough market for a new market entrant. However, I can say, once you develop with your customer, you can benefit the long-term relationship with your customer. So entry barrier would protect you once you get into a business with a big Japanese company. So I like to say it pays off in the long term. So, but if you like to get the profit immediately, I don't recommend Japan. It takes a lot of time to get the fast sales. And the reason of this culture is probably Harakiri or suicide. When samurai did something wrong, it means he is responsible for what he did and what he said. So actually very masculine, and usually people don't want to commit a suicide. That's why they don't want to take risk. So I think this is the reason. Of course, this culture was abolished 150 years ago, but we still have such a mental barrier. So we have to be perfect. Otherwise, we have to commit suicide mentally and not physically nowadays. So now you understand the culture of your Japanese customer. And then I'd like to explain the reality of sales activities in Japan. If you have experience to have communication with Japanese companies, probably you haven't known this entry barrier. Most of Japanese business people don't speak English. Of course, in a super big company, in our international business department, there are a lot of English speakers. But if you are selling some technical products to engineers, most of them don't understand English. In a big company, of course, there are some English speaking engineers, but they don't feel comfortable to speak English about some detail. And all documents must be written in Japanese. And if you provide a high-tech service, your service must be provided in the Japanese language. So it means you have to hire someone who speaks Japanese. And the second barrier exists in sales process. So this is a comparison. Japan and some open and flexible country. I don't say what country is, but in open and flexible country, arranging first meeting is easy. You know, they are talkative, open, friendly, and you can have an open discussion with your target company. And probably you can reach an agreement much easier than Japan. However, in implementation, you know, they are super flexible. Sometimes they try to change the contract. Sometimes they cancel. They sometimes change some specification. You know, there are a lot of going forward and back forth. So it's somewhat, you know, annoying you. So this is the reality of open and flexible country. Again, I don't say the country name, but in Japan, arranging first meeting is super difficult because especially in a big company. For example, if you are selling components to automotive, unfortunately, each Japanese big automotive player has tens of thousands of engineers, and their jobs are broken down into very small parts. So finding one key person from like 40,000 engineers is you know, super tough. It's not easy. And then they usually don't hesitate unknown person or stranger. Usually they prefer email exchanges for Q&A. They ask hundreds of questions, even in the case they are not very interested in your products. You know, it's really annoying. And you have to answer to those questions, and then you will have the first meeting for greetings. They usually don't prefer having a deep negotiation in a face-to-face meeting. They prefer, you know, emails. And you will have a lot of technical Q&A, and they have a lot of internal negotiations. And then finally, you can reach an agreement. But there's a good advantage for you. Once implementation has started, everything is smooth. Everything is well planned. So it's same for the case of COVID. It took a lot of time to get prepared, but once it started, you know, the speed of implementation is super fast in Japan. So this is a reality. So please do not expect a meeting with a high-level person or a key person easily. It takes a lot of time, and also it takes a lot of time to make an agreement with them. However, you know, it can be done easily for implementation. And another obstacle is in communication. Indirect. It's very different between low context culture and high context culture. In low context culture, you know, people speak directly. Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, you know, people are super radical and you know, direct. Of course, you know, they try to speak in the polite way, but very direct. It means it's easy for us to understand what they really think. But in Japan, you know, most of the important information is between the lines. It's not shown, obviously. It's super difficult, even for Japanese, to understand what they think, you know. So this is another trouble for a foreign company. My impression on China, Hong Kong, Singapore is much more directer than Japan. So I believe you like such an efficient way to have a discussion. I'm on your side. My nationality is Japanese, but I'm much more director than most of Japanese people. That's why most of Japanese people don't like me. Of course, I'm joking, but this is the reality. And they don't like discussion. They prefer to get all the information in document. Actually, speaking blah, blah, blah is not preferred in Japan. And Japanese sometimes speak honestly to a supplier, a domestic supplier, even especially in the case of some technical trouble. However, they don't speak directly to a foreign company or foreigners. So it's somewhat tricky. They complain to your Japanese staff, but they don't complain to you because you are a foreigner. They like to avoid a conflict, especially in English or any other languages. And another obstacle is customer relationship. This is a famous so-called as carrots. Like Toyota has a Toyota group, Toyota distributor, Toyota tier 1 supplier, tier 2 suppliers. Usually they don't have a financial relationship, but Toyota controls them. Sometimes, tier 1 supplier has a technical trouble. Toyota send a technical person to that supplier. And now it's been changing, but in the past, Honda tier 1 supplier cannot have a business with Toyota. It has changed, but still they have such kind of exclusive culture. And it's top-down culture. So usually suppliers can't say no to our OEM like Toyota. And personal relationship is very important. In the past, sales people invite customers to a bar or a karaoke. Now it's prohibited in a big company due to some compliance issue. But still, personal relationships is very important, especially in the case of technical trouble. They will test you. If you don't respond immediately to such kind of request, they just terminate a relationship with you. And it has changed due to the COVID. Nowadays, online meetings are getting popular, but still, most of the Japanese big companies prefer face-to-face meetings. So you cannot fly to Japan very often. So you need someone working on the ground in Japan. And the quality requirements, again, you have to commit suicide, Harakiri, if you failed something. So most Japanese people are perfectionists, but they love micromanagement. And they usually request excessive level of quality control. This is a good example. This is a specification provided from European company to a Chinese factory for the case of outsourcing of manufacturing this product. This specification is super simple, right? Another is provided by a Japanese company to the same Chinese factory. Products are, almost same. However, the specification is, super in detail. They love micromanagement. So I know you don't like this. Of course, I don't like this. However, you have to adapt to this type of culture. So if you are an international sales manager, this is a very important job for you, that you persuade your engineers to adapt to it. So it's tough work. However, it's very important to get sales from Japanese customers. So now I'd like to explain some options of market entry. I know this is the ideal situation. You find a local distributor, you do nothing, but your products are sold semi-automatically. But it usually doesn't happen, especially in the industrial sector of the Japanese market. So the reason is here, life cycle of industry. Actually, Japan was at this stage in 1970s and 80s. At the time, the economy was growing, so many American and European companies entered Japan during that period by forming a joint venture, sometimes by finding a distributor or licensee. During this period, it's easy to find a enthusiastic distributor because the market is growing, so demand is strong. However, supply is still poor, so distributors are always seeking new products during this period. However, the market finally hit the ceiling and then start declining. When it's declining, demand is weak. However, many companies have already entered the market, so competition is harsh. So declining market, tough competition, which means the price should fall down. So, and the oligopoly usually happens at the end of this stage, meaning the market is dominated by limited number of super strong players. So usually a local distributor thinks it's not a good idea to get into such a very fixed market. They don't invest in such market on behalf of you. So if you really want to join or enter such a market at the later stage of industrial life cycle, you have to invest. So this is a reality. So this case study can explain more about the difficulty of finding a good distributor in Japan. This is a case of an engine filter company. Actually, the company met a big distributor having a good connection with their good end users, but nothing happened. The reason is here, in some industries like automotive or construction machinery or any kind of commercial vehicles, the role of distributor is just-in-time delivery. They usually don't do sales activities. The reason is simple. The price of your company and your competitor is almost in the same range. For a distributor, whichever is fine, because the product price is almost same and the profit is almost same. So distributor is fine as far as end users A is happy with the supplier. So in this case, this guy has no motivation to promote a particular product like yours because whichever is fine. So that's why you have to do sales activity directly to your end users, OEM. So this is somewhat tricky, but the reality of the Japanese industrial market. Of course, final delivery should be done through this distributor because they have a stock in the warehouse near the factory of end user. They do deliver your product just-in-time delivery, but unfortunately, they don't promote your product. You have to do it by yourself. So in some industrial sectors, finding a distributor wouldn't be a solution. So it's a framework to compare different market entry options. Again, I know this is the ideal option. You just find a distributor which sell your product semi-automatically. But of course, risk is very low. However, you can't control them. Your distributor usually works for their own interests, not for you. So this is another extreme option, direct investment. You set up your Japan subsidiary and hire local talent by yourself. It's a high risk, of course. However, you can control everything. In between, there are some types of collaboration. So you have to choose some option. If you like to get a high control, you take a high risk. You don't bear high risk with this option, but you can't control. So our firm usually recommend another option here. You take small risk, like paying several thousand US$ per month, but you can get high control. So this is the field about our service, marketing and sales rep in Japan. So we require a retainer-based contract, but the fee is just several thousand in the case of part-time. But you can get control because we represent you and we work do everything for our client on behalf of you and report everything to you. So when there are some advantages and disadvantages of just working with a local distributor here, those are advantages. So it's easy to get a market experience. And again, low investment or low risk. And hopefully you can take advantage of their existing customer space. However, it's not easy. So there are some disadvantages of just doing business through a local distributor. So it's critical. You cannot get any relationship with your OEM end users. And you cannot get a chance to have a deep technical discussion with your target customers. And another problem is your distributor usually doesn't disclose important market information to you, like contact information of key person in OEM. And one distributor has a limited market coverage usually. Some company covers some industry. This company covers this application like that. So there's no perfect matching distributor. And no control on sales activities. Of course, no control of their end user pricing. You never know how much markup they make. And at the beginning, service level should be, of course, very low. And it's not effective to sell to Japanese companies located outside Japan because it's none of your distributor's business. You know, their territory is Japan. So it's meaningless that you deliver to Japanese companies in different countries. And you know, what's the disadvantage is here. You never know why your business doesn't grow in Japan in such case. So probably now you understand for industrial sector, of course, the Japanese market is very attractive, but it's not easy to develop without your local guy working on the ground in Japan. Having a distributor will help you to get a small level of sales, but it could hit the ceiling in many cases. So I'd like to explain some case studies. So before that, I'd like to say, please do not waste your time and money for research and consulting. Because when you do market research, it's very difficult to reach a key engineer. Because again, Toyota or big manufacturers have tens of thousands of engineers. It's very difficult to find the right person to conduct the interview. And most of Japanese companies are, you know, very conservative. Usually they reject your interviewer because they have no benefit from just answering to your question. And even in the case you arrange the interview, they usually don't speak honestly. Probably they will say, yes, interesting, your products seem good, but nothing happens. You know, it's a very Japanese way. And if you hire researchers or consultants, they cannot have a deep technical knowledge. It means they cannot have a technical discussion in deep with your customers' engineers. So it's very difficult to understand the marketability of your products without such kind of interactive discussion. Probably you have to give some your product presentation. They will give you some specification. You will tell them some case studies, test data, finally provide a test product and conduct some tests on your customer side. And finally, you can get to know the marketability of your products in the industrial sector. So that's why I'm saying, please do not waste your time and money for deep market research. Actually, test marketing is much easier. You try to sell your products and get a response on that, and you make a sales strategy based on such a response. So our firm strongly recommend this way. So now I'd like to explain 2 case studies. The first one is some component company for plant equipment. What we did is here, our staff had the product training, do sales and marketing activities, translated the marketing material, research potential customers, and visit them to have a technical discussion again and again and again. And we found a challenge. Their product specification doesn't meet the Japanese voltage requirement. So, and they need to invest $1 million to adapt to that. It's not a good idea for the client, especially at the beginning of market entry, because there's no sales and profit. And there's another bad news. The strongest competitor in Japan has advantages in both quality and price. So it sounds not promising at all, but we found a way. This is a client, Japanese customers. Of course, in Japan, 100 voltage is a must. However, we identified the exporting market. Japanese companies manufacture some product and export to other market, like Middle East, Southeast Asia. So in such case, this voltage issue is nothing. So our client sell to their component to a Japanese company, which exports some product, including our client's component, to Middle East and Southeast Asia. So, and it's a good news for our client. They have a strong maintenance network covering Middle East and Southeast Asia, which is some serious issue for some Japanese companies exporting to those regions. That's why our client finally found good Japanese customers. So, and this strategy was made by information we collected through this technical discussion with the key engineers in their target organizations. Finally, they increased the sales revenue in Japan, and they hired a fluent Japanese speaker who usually stays in Japan, and also started the M&A search. So I think this is a very good case study to understand the marketing activities in Japan. So what they did is hiring us with paying several thousand US dollars on the retainer base. We assigned one salesperson working on part-time basis, like 60 hours per month. And we visited many customers, and finally, they got their confidence, and they hired a Japanese-speaking guy by themselves. And unfortunately to us, they terminated the contract with us, and they started business activities by themselves and found some distributors who import their products into Japan and sell to Japanese customers. At the same time, they started some activities for searching M&A opportunities. They started from here. Small risk, paying just several thousand US dollars per month, but got their very high control, because our staff work diligently and get market information and analyzed where is a good target market for our client, and establish the sales strategy in a few years. So this is a very good case study for you to understand what they did. The second case study is a component for industrial electronics. What we did is the same with the previous case. And the challenge is, actually, we found a good distributor having the access to their target customers. However, the distributor was selling only very simple product, and the distributor had no idea where is the right target segment of the market. And what we did is same. We visited the many companies and get market information where our client can compete. And finally, we found some target segments like this. For this industry, product C would be competitive like this. And finally, their local distributor get confident to promote a particular products to particular industries, and sales increased. And the client had a chance to deliver to a Japanese customer in China after closing a deal in Japan. And now the client has established a very strong relationship with their local distributor. Actually, that local distributor purchased the share of the client. It's a small share, like 3%. They are now investment or financial partner as well. But they did the same. They hired us. We developed the distributors, worked diligently, and established a good relationship with the local distributor. And finally, they terminated the contract with us, unfortunately. But it's like a graduation of my children, At the same time, I'm very happy and proud of the success in Japan. Still, our client is our, friend, good friend. When they come to Japan, we often have dinner or drink sake together. So I think the client took a very smart path. So this is a wrap-up. Please do not spend time for research and consulting. It's like scratching the surface of the market. And I recommend just marketing and strategy planning at the same time as what we did, visiting your customers, having technical discussions, get their market demand, and establish your sales strategy. And that should be done on outsourcing basis, because I don't recommend you set up your own Japan office at the beginning of market entry, because it requires a big investment, like $250,000 a year, at least. Maybe it could be $500,000. And after developing a market on outsourcing basis, you can take the next path, setting up your own office or M&A or any. So this is what we recommend. This is our approach. So this is the end of my presentation. This is our service. Again, we are very strong at this stage, business development. However, we of course work for market research, regulatory research, business matching with the potential distributors, and of course, we help you set up your Japan office. Sometimes inside our company address. Sometimes we take care of all the administrative things like payroll, accounting, or anything. So okay, thank you very much for participating us today, and I hope you can get some ideas and narratives on the Japanese market and market entry strategy for Japan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yasushi, for your presentation. And during your presentation, we have received several questions, but I have already answered to them. So maybe we can wait just 1 minute for a few more questions, and but until that time, maybe we can share our past nice question which we have received in the past. Yeah, for example, one of the typical questions which we have received in the past was, for example, how much does it cost to set up and operate a company in Japan per year? So what do you think about the cost for establishing and operating company in Japan?
Probably it could be between $250,000 and $500,000. Of course, it depends on the type of people you hire. Like if you at least you need to hire a sales manager, bilingual, having a technical background or some experience in your target industry, and assistant to take care of administrative things or marketing support. And you set up your own office in the center of Tokyo. Yeah, definitely. You have to pay between $250,000 to $500,000 without sales.
Yeah, that's true. That's a tough part of a kind of investment without sales. Okay, and so far no more question. And
we got two.
Yeah, we got many. Oh, thank you for your question. For example, how to hire a sales manager who can manage global culture and local culture. How to hire a sales manager who can manage global culture and local culture. Thanks for the question.
Okay, of course, you need to have your own subsidiary if you hire those people directly. But I'd like to share with you our case. We usually focus on people who retired big Japanese companies, which are your target companies. It means they are over 60 years old. So I like to say that generation experienced the internationalization of big Japanese companies. Now, most of the big Japanese companies have established their subsidiaries all over the world. But in 1980s or 90s, many Japanese salespeople were, flying to many countries all over the world. That's why we like to hire such a generation. At the same time, due to the seniority payment system, their friends are in high level in big Japanese companies. So it means they still have a good network. So that is our suggestion or our company's recruitment strategy.
Okay, thanks, Yes. And we have, maybe this will be the last question. During the purchasing decision process in automotive OEMs, how about the power between technical team and purchasing team? Maybe about this question, maybe I can answer because based on my past experience, and the answer is depends. It depends on the company. For example, in case of Toyota, historically, Toyota has the purchasing department had stronger power than technical department. And for example, the Komatsu, the construction machinery company, I would say again, purchasing people had stronger power. But of course, some company has a technical team can more power than purchasing department. So the answer is it totally depends on the company. So company by company, the power balance are different.
I can add one aspect. It also depends on the type of product. Your product is, for example, autonomous driving software. Actually, purchasing person has nothing to do with that. So if your product is brand new and critical, you have to have a discussion with the technical people first.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so that it depends on the level of importance of the products. Okay, so now it's already the time to close our webinar of today. So again, we'd like to thank you very much for your time to join our webinar. And again, please feel free to contact us by email if you have any questions about business in Japan, or if you'd like to reserve an online separate meeting with us, please send us an email. Then we are very much looking forward to receiving your message and answer to your questions. Okay, so thank you very much. Then see you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope we have a chance to work together with some of you guys in the near future. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.